A black void, two ribbons of light streaking across it, and then one of them snaps a perfect 90-degree turn, no arc, no skid, a right angle at full speed, and the other one plows straight into the wall of light it leaves behind. Nobody had ever seen a movie move like that. In 1982, this looked like it came from the future. This is Tron. And here's the thing that gets me as an adult. The film industry looked at what this movie did and accused it of cheating. Not we don't like it. Not the story's weak. Cheating as in, you didn't really earn those images, the machine did it for you. That's not fair. And so the one category this film should have owned, it was quietly left out of.
Fights for the users.
And then the exact thing they called cheating went on to eat the entire industry. Every glowing spaceship, every digital dinosaur, every superhero city, all of it, is the technique the Academy's own artists once called a fraud. So today, the accusation that froze Tron out of the Oscars, the correction almost nobody makes about what actually happened, and the strange, slow way that cheating won every argument in the room. As a kid, Tron is glowing suits and a video game world. As an adult, you realize you're looking at the ground zero of modern cinema, a film punished by its own kind for inventing the future a decade too early. Start with the man who saw it coming, because he wasn't a Hollywood insider. That's the point.
On the other side of the screen, it all looks so easy.
Steven Lisberger was an animator. In 1976, he saw the video game Pong, this crude little bouncing dot, and where everyone else saw a toy, he saw a world. A place inside the machine, with its own rules and its own inhabitants. He'd built a career on a technique called backlit animation, making commercials and educational films glow, all while watching, from the sidelines, this brand new field of computer animation start to stir. The name Tron came first. Actually, it was the mascot of his animation studio, a little disc-throwing figure in the logo, the name taken from electronic. He built a whole movie around the idea of a man pulled inside a computer, and the studios said no. Warner Brothers passed. MGM passed. Columbia passed. Because who greenlights a film that requires technology nobody has invented yet? It was an original idea that could only be realized with tools that didn't exist, the hardest possible thing to sell in a business that runs on the safety of the familiar. One studio said yes. Disney in this matters was in a rut. Walt was long gone. The company had been left in the dust by Star Wars and Close Encounters, whose sophisticated wonder made Disney's talking cars and recycled cartoons look ancient. Their one real swing at the post-Star Wars era, a 1979 space film called The Black Hole, had done okay, but hadn't announced anything. So they were hungry enough to gamble on the weird animator with the impossible pitch, because the pitch was exactly the kind of innovation the studio had been built on decades earlier and had somehow forgotten how to do. Lisberger later said it plainly. Quite a few established film people thought he was nuts, but he didn't know enough about how Hollywood worked to know he was attempting the impossible. Hold on to that, the outsider who didn't know it couldn't be done, because that's the whole story. Now, how do you make a movie out of technology that doesn't exist?
This far.
You invent it as you go. One of the film's animators, Bill Croyer, described the process perfectly. They weren't making the film to use existing technology, they were creating the technology along the way. His image for it was people who jump off the cliff and build their wings on the way down. They pulled in legendary designers Sid Mead, who'd go on to shape Blade Runner, and the French comics genius known as Mobius, to imagine what the inside of a computer might look like when no human had ever pictured it. And Lisberger described the actual achievement in his own words. They used computer-generated imagery as an actual environment, a place, which had never been done before, and they did all of it in about 7 months a stretch.
There's nothing special about you. You're just an ordinary program.
So are you. One that should have been erased.
That included inventing the techniques as they went. And here's the detail that should stop you cold. The state-of-the-art computer doing the film's key effects had 2 megabytes of memory and 330 megabytes of storage. Your phone is a god by comparison. On that machine, they built a digital world, and it was tiny, by the way, the amount of true computer imagery. Only about 15 minutes of Tron is actually CGI. For scale, Star Wars, 5 years earlier, had around 40 seconds of it. 15 minutes was a moonshot. And computer-generated is almost a misleading phrase for how it was made, because there was nothing automatic about it. The computers of 1982 couldn't just render a fluid-moving image. Animators mapped out scenes on graph paper by hand, worked out the coordinates point by point, and handed the numbers to engineers who typed them in a slow, punishing, deeply manual process. The irony that's about to matter enormously, the people who'd be accused of letting the machine do the work were doing some of the most labor-intensive animation in the history of the medium. Look at who they put in that world, and more importantly, look at where Disney made them stand.
My name's Ram.
Jeff Bridges as Kevin Flynn, the cocky programmer, Bruce Boxleitner as Tron, the security program who fights for the users, David Warner as the villain, Cindy Morgan as Yori, a real cast, doing real work inside a fluorescent-taped void. But here's the buried detail that sets up everything. Disney didn't respect what its own crew was building. The animator Chris Wedge has recalled that the Tron team worked out of temporary trailers, not the main Disney animation building, because the old guard saw it as computers just making effects, not real animation. The people inventing the future of the studio were literally kept outside the building where the real artists worked.
You shouldn't have come back, Flynn.
Sit with that image, because it's the film's whole fate in miniature. Contempt from the very institution the work would one day save. And there's a strange echo between what was happening on set and what the movie is actually about. Look at the story. A programmer named Flynn is pulled inside the machine, where the programs live in fear of a tyrant, the master control program that has decided the humans, the users, are a myth, and that anyone who still believes in them is a threat to be erased. It's a film about a system that denies the people who created it, made by a crew whose own studio was busy denying that what they created was real work. The people in the trailers were living the plot, which brings us to the accusation.
You're getting brutal, Sark. Brutal and needlessness of deceit.
Thank you, Master.
When the Academy Awards came around, Tron got 2 nominations, Best Sound and Best Costume Design. It got nothing for visual effects, the single most visually revolutionary film of the year, the one that expanded what a movie could look like, was left off the ballot for the category it reinvented. And the reason, as the people who made it understood it, was brutal. Lisberger has said it directly. The Academy thought they cheated by using computers. The sequel's director, Joseph Kosinski, put it the same way years later, that there's a bitter irony in Tron being left out of the visual effects race because the Academy considered using a computer to be cheating. As a kid, a snub is just a snub. As an adult, you see what it actually was. The guardians of an art form, declaring that a new tool wasn't a tool at all, it was fraud. That the machine had done the work, so the artists hadn't earned it. And the irony sits right there in the winners list. The visual effects Oscar that year went to E.T. Tron, the film that had gone somewhere no movie had ever been walked away, with a costume trophy on the table, and a hole where its real achievement should have been. Now here's the part where I have to be careful, because the popular version of this story is slightly wrong, and the truth is more interesting than the myth. You'll hear, constantly, that the Academy formally disqualified Tron. There was a rule, computers were banned, it was thrown out. And I want to be honest with you, I have not found an actual Academy rulebook that says that. What the record actually shows is subtler and, I think, worse. The film simply wasn't nominated. Lisberger himself has said it flatly, they weren't even nominated for special effects. There was no dramatic ejection. There was a room full of visual effects professionals who looked at Tron and decided it didn't count. And you can hear that contempt in the accounts. The film's own effects supervisor, Richard Taylor, described the frosty reception when Tron was screened for the effects committee, the sense in the room that the computer had done everything by itself, that the humans hadn't really made anything.
Greetings, program!
So here's the correction. It wasn't a rule that kept Tron out. It was a culture, a profession protecting its borders, deciding that the people using the new machines were less than real artists, the same contempt that had already exiled the crew to those parking lot trailers. That's not a technicality. That's a group of people looking at the future and calling it a cheat. And that is a much harder thing to forgive than a line in a rule book, because a rule can be changed. An attitude has to be defeated. Okay, the honest downturn. At the time, none of this looked like vindication. It looked like failure. Tron opened on July the 9th, 1982. The reviews praised the visuals and picked at the story, which critics found cold and incoherent. And at the box office, it was a moderate performer, not a disaster, but nowhere near the phenomenon Disney had gambled on. It was the kind of result that makes a studio quietly decide it made a mistake. And then, the perfect humiliating footnote, the arcade games. Disney had licensed Tron video games, and they were huge. The Tron and discs of Tron cabinets became genuine arcade classics, with swallowing quarters by the millions. By some accounts, the Tron arcade machines brought in more money than the movie itself did. A film about the world inside a video game, out-earned by the actual video games it spawned. Disney took the hint, felt embarrassed by the whole expensive experiment, and shelved the concept. It would be 28 years before a sequel.
All that is visible must grow beyond itself.
The film that invented the future got filed under lesson learned, except it hadn't lost. It had just won a fight nobody realized was happening yet. Because the thing the Academy's artists called cheating did not go away, it grew. It went through Terminator 2, through the Lord of the Rings trilogy, through Avatar, each one dragging Hollywood a little further into accepting that computer imagery wasn't a fraud, it was the medium. And in every one of those histories, Tron is the black sheep at the very start, the film that took the arrows so the others could walk through the door. The Academy that couldn't bring itself to nominate Tron would, within a couple of decades, be handing out its biggest technical awards almost exclusively to the descendants of what Tron did first. And the sweetest vindication came from inside Disney's own future. A young animator named John Lasseter saw Tron, and something clicked. He said it opened his eyes to what computer animation could actually be. Not just a graphics demo, but a way to tell a story. That revelation set him on the road that led to Pixar. Lasseter has been quoted, simply, as saying that without Tron, there would be no Toy Story. Follow that all the way through. Toy Story fully computer-generated, the thing the Academy once called a cheat, taken to its absolute conclusion, won a Special Achievement Oscar as the first computer-animated feature. The company that stuck its Tron crew in parking lot trailers built its next golden age on exactly what those people were doing in there. The men accused of cheating didn't just win the argument. The whole industry quietly stopped playing its game and started playing theirs. And here's where it lands, right now, in the cruelest possible rhyme. In October of 2025, more than 40 years after the original, Disney released a third film, Tron, Ares with Jared Leto, on a budget reported anywhere from $180 to $220 million, and it failed, hard. It grossed somewhere around $140 million worldwide, against that enormous cost a genuine bomb. The trade coverage was blunt. The Hollywood Reporter relayed insiders, saying the flop signaled the end of Tron as a blockbuster franchise, and reporting suggested Disney was shelving further big Tron films for the foreseeable future. Sit with the shape of that. The film that gave birth to the entire CGI age can no longer survive in the CGI-soaked world it created. In 1982, Tron looked like nothing else on Earth. That was the whole point. That was what got it accused of cheating. In 2025, every blockbuster looks like Tron. The grid, the glow, the digital everything. It's the water the whole industry swims in now. So the one thing Tron had, its impossible newness, has been distributed to every other movie until there's none left for Tron itself. It gave its magic away to everyone else, and kept none. The thing it invented made it ordinary. As a kid, Tron is light cycles, and a guy trapped in a computer. As an adult, you find the real story sitting underneath the neon. An outsider who didn't know a thing was impossible. A crew exiled to trailers and called frauds by their own studio. A film left off a ballot by a profession terrified of a machine. And then, slowly, completely, the entire art form bending itself into the shape those cheaters drew first. They called it cheating, then everyone started cheating. And the house always wins except, it turns out, the house that built the table. Knowing all that doesn't dim a single frame. It makes that 90-degree turn hit so much harder. So tell me what's the one piece of this still living rent-free in your head? The light cycles, greetings programs, the disc. Drop it in the comments. Yours might be the thing that boots the whole memory back up for someone else. And if there's another movie you want me to dig into like this, tell me below.